Hey there, this is Brett with ISW. Big news out of Japan today. We have a new club standard DJ platform, the CDJ-3000X. The CDJ-3000X is being released today. This is no longer being branded as a Pioneer or Pioneer DJ product. You won't find a single Pioneer logo on this box, and we'll take a look at that shortly here. This is the AlphaTheta CDJ-3000X, and AlphaTheta made a conscious decision to really push expanded connectivity, modern Wi-Fi and streaming options for the new club standard CDJ. Let's look at some of the features and see what you all think of it. Taking a look at some of the product shots and some of the set options, this really isn't any useful information other than to just get excited. You can see here we have a couple of CDJs flanking a pair of PLX 1000s and centrally utilizing an AlphaTheta Euphonia as a mixer. I don't know if you've ever checked that mixer out, but it's actually super cool. I got a chance to mess around with it during a sound check in Cologne, Germany. I found it to be super intuitive and really simple but exciting feature set. Below that, we see the full stacked lineup of 6 CDJ-3000Xs with the flagship DJM V10 mixer, of course, and then another big arrangement on a V10 mixer where we've got the outer PLX 1000s to play vinyl and the internal 4 CDJ-3000Xs. No real features unless you look closely on this product shot, but just something to get people excited. Top-down overhead view. On the left, we have the existing CDJ-3000. Remember, this product was launched in late September 2020. Today, September 9th, 2025, we're having access to the CDJ-3000X. And we're just taking a look at the top-down views right now. There's a 10% increase in overall height. There's a 5% increase in width, an 8% increase in depth. And the weight has jumped up from 5.5 kilos up to 6 kilos. The first thing that I noticed is that there's no longer any Pioneer DJ logo whatsoever. You can see that here on the left. On the right, you can just make out an AlphaTheta logo on the top of the screen there if you look closely. But I think one of the big headlines of this mixer is that finally there's USB-C connectivity. If you look at USB port 2 on the CDJ-3000X, that is in fact a USB-C connection point. Other than that, the next thing that will probably grab your attention is the larger capacitive touchscreen. Officially, this is a 10.1-inch screen for the CDJ-3000X versus the 9-inch on the CDJ-3000. Pioneer's also re-engineered some of the components that we're looking at here. It's not super obvious from the screenshot, but they have re-engineered the cue and play pause buttons from the ground up to make them more durable. And they've also added more tension adjustments and usage adjustments to the jog wheel. If you look closely here, you can see on the left in the CDJ-3000, this is called Jog Adjust. They've rebranded this feature to Jog Feel, which you can see here on the 3000X. In general, there are some minor differences in the layout, but really the big ticket items is the USB-C connectivity on this top-down look and the bigger screen, which is going to enable easier and more intuitive browsing features. We're taking a look at the front and rear sides of the CDJs as we go from the previous generation to the new flagship. The 3000 on the left, you can see it's a very clean front. The top images here you're looking at are the front of the CDJ module. And of course, the rear is where you have your connectivity, both analog and digital, and that very useful USB port to connect your computer. Let's start with the top. One of the biggest feature changes and additions to the 3000X is the NFC touchpoint, and that's the icon that you're seeing in the middle of the 3000X here on the right. Think of this as like a touchless or contactless payment that you would use when you go out and purchase something with your iPhone or your Android. This is the same thing for connecting with your CDJ-3000X. It's going to allow you to walk up to a CDJ, authenticate, and start streaming media and content live from your Rekordbox app. It's a pretty revolutionary way to modernize the workflow, and it's an interesting example of bringing consumer preferences into what has traditionally been a pro product and a pro workflow. One of the standout features and major additions in the 3000X up from the 3000. Looking at the rear, we have most of the same connectivity ports. However, we have a second USB-C connector port. I know for most modern laptops that you may be using in conjunction with CDJs, this is going to be a more direct and applicable connection. Last little detail here for you aesthetic folks, the feet or the pads that the CDJ are standing on are no longer that brushed aluminum look. They are all black, which has been a trend that we've seen with AlphaTheta products. They're going black matte. We see that with most of the new mixers, the Opus Quad, the Euphonia, and other products. One more time, the Pioneer DJ logo is now gone. Maybe pour one out for it. Certainly personally like the Pioneer DJ logo. It's been replaced by AlphaTheta, so depending on your preferences, you may or may not care. Let's dive into some of the features really quick. Expanded media support. AlphaTheta provided some product shots here, but I'm sure there's going to be more in-depth videos and even maybe some interviews about these features. You can see them live, but ultimately the CDJ-3000X is going to fully support cloud storage and music streaming services. It has built-in Wi-Fi. This is another huge feature. You do not need to connect local area network cables to connect to the internet. And in fact, in some of the product shots, you'll notice that there is a Wi-Fi icon from the GUI. We mentioned before this NFC touchpoint authentication, like Apple Pay for your CDJ. Huge feature. We'll see how much this is used in pro applications. I could still see the critical nature of connecting your media source to the mixer at, say, a festival, still requiring a hardwired connection. I'm not sure if Pro Audio is going to be on board with converting to a wireless connection at this time, but overall, major feature breakthrough and definitely something that I think will entice a lot of people. Finally, dual USB connection ports, which is really exciting. In the 3000X, browsing, selecting, and managing your tracks is more intuitive than ever. The 10.1-inch touchscreen now displays up to 16 tracks in the browse screen. There's going to be a better visibility, smoother control. It's going to be easier to find and play those tracks that you're searching for. You can actually copy tracked information out and paste it straight into the search bar, which is super exciting. And for the first time on a CDJ, you can edit playlists by reordering the tracks directly within the unit. So you're no longer going to have to do that on a separate device and upload it to your CDJs. If you're using the Cloud Sync library, these changes are actually going to be dispersed through all of your devices. It's going to make your workflow easier and more streamlined. Global tagging is being featured on the 3000X for the first time. You can tag tracks from multiple USB drives, cloud storage locations, and streaming services, so they all appear in a single list. Those from online sources will start downloading as soon as you tag them, minimizing load times to help you make your performances smoother. There's a new hot queue workflow. It can help you analyze the structures of tracks and perform a bit more intuitively and spontaneously. The CDJ-3000X is still going to feature the touch queue, which is really popular. But what you're going to be able to do now is you're actually going to be able to set hot queues from within the touch queue workflow. So as you're listening ahead on your track and you want to prep or plan your upcoming set, or just add a new hot cue live in the middle of mixing, you can go ahead and do that from the comfort of your headphones. For smoother queuing, you can also turn on Smart Queue, and the position and color of the called up hot cue will automatically overwrite the current cue point. Something I'm actually personally not super familiar with, but gate cue is going to be available where sound plays only while you hold down a hot cue button, opening up new creative possibilities for tone play and other performance techniques. Something that can be a bane of any owner of CDJs are the buttons, critically the play pause, and the cue buttons being damaged over time from aggressive or let's say enthusiastic performers. The new buttons have been re-engineered from the ground up. They can handle 500,000 presses each. Something cool is that when you upload a track onto a CDJ, whether it's from a USB or whether it's from streaming or from the cloud, it's going to cache that file instantly. If you lose your internet connection or if someone grabs your USB drive by mistake, you're not going to actually have that track dropped. The track's not going to stop. You can go ahead and play the remainder of that track without fear. One more feature that I thought was pretty cool, and I mentioned earlier, they've expanded the jog wheel tension adjustment. more customization, and you can really dial in your CDJ for the way that you like to perform. They are highlighting some performance improvements. They are suggesting that there is a new high performance digital analog converter from ESS with an improved signal to noise ratio. Now we'll see on the next screen, I don't see any difference in that signal to noise ratio on the spec sheet generation over generation. Maybe it's something that we'll test live and in person, but they are promoting that there is an improved signal to noise ratio, which sounds great to me. And then finally, there is a new power supply unit that is meant to give a warmer sounding CDJ overall in a warmer mix, supposed to enhance the low frequency output or the bass and reduce additional unwanted signal noise. Sounds good to me. Again, we'll see in practice. There's no hard statistics that suggest that this is something that you'll see reflected on the spec sheet. It's probably just going to come down to A/B testing with a CDJ versus a CDJ-3000X. So this is the formal CDJ-3000 specifications that you'll see up on the internet. The frequency response is the same. Signal to noise ratio is still 115 dB, as I mentioned. Total harmonic distortion, I don't believe that's changed. The biggest change on the spec sheet, again, are of course in the USB, okay? We now have 2 USB Type-Cs, and the dimensions and the weight. Those are the biggest changes that I personally see on the spec sheet here. And finally, some key details that you probably want to know. CDJ-3000X, the new industry standard, is going to be available immediately. Shipping orders will begin in late September 2025. And then the price, the minimum advertised price, is just under $3K, $2,999. So there is a bit of a lift from the previous generation CDJ-3000. All right, that wraps it up. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, leave them down below. If you're interested in procuring some of these, you can reach out to us directly. We are an AlphaTheta and Pioneer Pro Audio dealer here based in Brooklyn, New York. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking it out. And we hope you're as excited as we are about this. Take care.